All right, and welcome back. And you guessed it right. I am looking at my fan favorite, and the picture you're looking at right now is Senator Ted Cruz, one of my favorite speakers. The guy is an amazing speaker, right? So in this speech, he talks about a myriad of things. He starts off by talking a little bit about our geopolitical uh, current standing from the perspective of a country. Talks about Palestine and Israel a little bit, and then as he talks, as the speech continues, he jumps into other issues as Senator Omar, and he talks about the border crisis that's going on between the U.S. and the Mexican border. So, anyways, the guy is an amazing speaker, and he tackles on issues that are sensitive. So I know these are a little bit touchy. So therefore, if you feel so strongly about it, I mean, feel free to leave a comment. But like, also be mindful of other people. You know. So the obviously, like, especially as far as it goes, the war between Israel and Palestine and Hamas, it's currently going on, and it's as you may know, it's a hot topic. So therefore, be sensitive to others, and even though you feel strongly about it, be kind, because I mean, people are still going through these things, and these things are fresh wounds, right? So, anyways, let's jump into it. Let's see what Senator Ted Cruz has to say.
And then there's crime. Crime skyrocketing across the country, murder rates through the roof, carjacking rates through the roof. Year after year of Democrats demagoguing and attacking police officers, arguing for defunding the police, arguing.
I gotta say, back in 2020, this was a hot topic, right? You couldn't turn the corner or bend the corner and not hear the phrase "defund the police," right? So that was a tough time, you know. I remember that time very vividly, and I know a lot of us do still do remember. And uh, I remember all the activities or the shenanigans that were going on. You know, that was not a good time. But anyways, I'm glad that's behind us, and the future is looking brighter than ever. So let's jump back into it and see what he says.
For abolishing the police, putting in place George Soros prosecutors who let violent criminals go. Now, here's some crazy rocket science. If you release violent criminals into your community, you get more violent crime. Well, let me tell you right now, the men and women of Oklahoma support the heroes of law enforcement.
We support you.
And then there's the crisis at our southern border. Look, representing Texas, I spend a lot of time on our southern border. A few years ago, I was down there, went out on midnight patrol with the Border Patrol. They came up to a stash house, kicked down the door. They started pulling out some really sketchy guys, big guys, tatted up. The agents are all calling over, going, Senator, Senator, come over here. I'm going, Ixnay on the editor say.
Ixnay on the
Just call me Bob. A few months ago, I took 7 senators down to the border to see firsthand what's happening. It's always been bad, but it has never been remotely this bad. You go out on patrol, you don't have to look for people crossing illegally. Within minutes, they find you. They turn themselves into you, women, children. Border Patrol agents showed us a patch of grass where a couple of weeks earlier they'd found 2 little girls, aged 5 and 6, who had been brutally sexually assaulted by human traffickers. They had to give them emergency medical care. That is happening every single day. You sit down with.
I gotta say, it's real on the southern border, right? I mean, I've never been at the border itself, but I've been to like Mexico. So it does get real down there, you know? It's the things that the senator there is mentioning are not false. I don't think there's any exaggeration there because I mean, yeah, there's bad things going around there. I saw one video not too long ago where like there was a great migration of people, and these people weren't coming from like Central nor South America. These were people from all over the world, right? So it's tough. It's a big issue currently in the U.S. I mean, if you go into major cities like Chicago and New York, I mean, you see evidence of this. I saw another documentary about a kid and his mom. He walks around with a with a camera and talks about to random people on the streets of New York. I think it was in Manhattan, and they were showing just the people in Central Park, just you know, just people that were like fished from the southern border, and they were just sitting there waiting. They were sitting in these nice hotels, and they would sleep in police stations. So I mean, you can see the animosity between like New Yorkers, the locals, and I mean, locals are working hard, right? They are paying all the taxes, but the taxes are being diverted to like circumvent the expenses that are like arising from uh, the the immigrants that have been housed in these hotels, you know. So there's been an ongoing beef between the locals and the people that have been housed in these cities. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. You know, I'm an immigrant myself, but I did not come through that pipeline. I came through the pipeline of school. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand. But let's see what the senator has to say about this issue.
Texas farmers and ranchers, they show you photograph after photograph of dead bodies they find on their farms and ranches. Pregnant women, elderly people, little kids the traffickers abandon to die in the heat. Last year we had over 100,000 fentanyl overdoses from Chinese fentanyl and other opioids. And I got to tell you, the Democrats and the corrupt corporate media could not possibly care less until 50 arrived at Martha's Vineyard.
I gotta say, and apologies for continually stopping the video here, but fentanyl is a big issue too, right? It's a big topic. It's I mean, it's been wreaking havoc in the streets of the U.S., right? Like, I'm a big YouTube person. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and documentaries. I mean, primarily because I like the idea that you can fast rewind and fast forward without having to wait for a slotted time to which you can watch something, right? So I do like that aspect of it. But I did see or watch what is this a documentary on Kensington. For those who have never heard of Kensington, look it up. It's a street in Philadelphia. I don't remember the city, but Kensington is a street, and you can just see the evidence of drugs. People are literally looking like zombies. You know, you see people with limbs that are rotting. I mean, it's something you see like in some Hollywood production, right? But that is reality up there. Well, I mean, from where I am, literally that is down there. Yeah. Anyways, that is something that is very present and evident. You can see the issues with first of all the issues with addiction and the issues with drugs itself. So I mean, when people talk about this from like I don't think that's a marketing nor a political strategy is portraying there. I think it's just stating the truth and the facts. So, anyways, let's jump back into it and see what he has to say.
And suddenly the white bread, lily livered, hypocritical socialist billionaires discovered we had a crisis. Well, it interfered with tea time. AOC tweeted out. She said, shout out to the people of Martha's Vineyard for demonstrating the very best of American values. So I promptly retweeted her. I said, look, you're exactly right. They deported everyone within 24 hours. And as bad as the domestic policy is, as bad as the economic policy is, the foreign policy has been even worse. A year ago, Joe Biden shamefully surrendered to the Taliban, abandoned Americans behind enemy lines. And when that happened, every enemy of America, they looked to Washington, they looked to the Oval Office, they took the measure of the man. And tragically, they concluded that our commander-in-chief was weak and feckless and ineffective. And today, every enemy of America is stronger, and America's never been at greater jeopardy. Now, some of y'all might be thinking, Ted, you said you were going to encourage us. You really suck at this. But I told you, I've got two messages. Here's the second. Revival is coming. And I got to tell you, I believe that with all of my heart. One of the great blessings, I get to travel all across Texas, all across the country. I get to see what is going on. In American politics, it's always had a pendulum sense to it. One party gets in power, they go too far one direction, and the American people pull it back. Every time I see another idiotic policy from the White House, part of me grieves for the damage being done to the American people. But part of me quietly celebrates because it's accelerating the process of people's eyes opening up. Look, what has happened to the Democrat Party nationally is they have been radicalized. They have handed their agenda over to the crazies. Look, 5 years ago in the United States Senate, there was one open socialist, Bernie Sanders. Crazy Uncle Bernie, white hair sticking straight up. By the way, would it kill the man to use a comb? I mean, he's a socialist. He could just take somebody's. But 5 years ago, the Democrats would be like, no, we're not socialists. We're not with him. We're something different. Today, they're all socialists. Today, Bernie Sanders is the chairman of the Budget Committee, and the number one priority for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. We're facing an unmitigated disaster at our southern border. Illegal immigration.
Yeah, so that was the end of that first speech there. I mean, obviously, he did throw in what I call like political statistics, and like at the very end there when he threw in the word revival, I didn't think he said anything that was worthy of a standing ovation. But you know, as a politician, you have to keep that in mind. So politicians will say all these negative things about their opposition, and then they'll have a mic drop moment where they say, "But I will do this," but they never really mention or say nor state what they will do. They'll just say, like in this case, it was just like, "Well, revival is coming." But what entails revival? I mean, give me a little bit of detail on what you mean by revival, right? It's just that it's a very abstract statement. Revival is coming. What is it? What is revival? Can you define to us what you mean by revival? And I think when they get to debating, or maybe when the politicians get to a point where they're holding town hall meetings, I think these are questions that are worth asking, right? So if somebody just says something like that, especially a presidential candidate or a senatorial candidate, They just said revival is coming. So if you follow up and ask them a question like, "Hey, what entails revival? Can you give me like a step-by-step answer of what that entails? Does this mean that you have a plan for handling taxes? I mean, and how does that plan look like? But they always woo people in their ways of speech superiority, and they're good at this. And this is not just Senator Ted Cruz, but this goes for almost every politician there is out there. Um, Anyways, this is another bunched section of the interview, and I haven't seen any of this that's coming forward, but let's see what he has to say.
Is the worst in our nation's history, and it's indefensible. All of us have been down to the southern border. I spend a lot of time on our southern border. John Cornyn and I together brought 19 senators down to the border to see firsthand. You cannot see what is happening there and defend it. One of my recent trips to the border, a reporter asked me, said, aren't the policies of Democrats more compassionate, more humane than you mean Republicans? And I just started laughing. I said, you know who doesn't believe that anymore? Democrats. Where's Joe Biden? Where's Kamala Harris? Where's even a single Democrat senator? Where's AOC? I assume she still has her white pantsuit. She just can't be bothered to cry in front of the Biden cages. Because with Trump no longer in the White House, suddenly the suffering of those kids doesn't matter. You cannot see what is happening and defend it. And by the way, the reason Biden doesn't go to the border, the reason Kamala Harris and other Democrats don't go to the border, because if they did, y'all would follow. The press would follow. And their only defense, they cannot defend what they're doing. Their only defense is to cover it up. Karine Jean-Pierre stands at the White House podium and says, people are not just walking across the border. It's not happening. There's a technical legal term for what that is. That's called bullshit. It is an utter and complete lie. It is a deliberate lie. It is a known lie. And she is lying on behalf of the President of the United States in the White House. Now, why does she lie? She lies because she counts on the press not to call her out. Was there a PolitiFact, a pants on fire done on that? No. I've invited the White House press secretary, come with me to the southern border any day and pick any hour of the day. We'll go out in 1 hour, and I guarantee you we will encounter group after group after group. You want to know how bad it is? We're now seeing Democrat mayors, Democrat governors, mayors like Eric Adams, the Democrat in New York, who says illegal immigration is destroying New York City. That's with 110,000 illegal immigrants in New York City. If 100...
That is a fact. I concur with that. New York City, Chicago, those cities are under siege, right? Chicago, man, you find illegal immigrants just slipping in police stations. So I think, yeah, I agree with that 110.
10,000 is destroying New York City. What in the hell do you think 7.6 million is doing to the state of Texas and the other states along our southern border? Now, these Democrats who are saying this, they can't quite muster up the strength to put the blame where it lies, which is at the feet of Democrats who are doing this deliberately. Instead, Mayor Adams blames, quote, that madman down in Texas, by which he means Greg Abbott. I have to admit, I was kind of offended he wasn't referring to me. But he blames Greg Abbott for putting a few thousand illegal immigrants on buses and sending them to New York City. The person who caused this crisis, his name is Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. His home address is 16 blocks away. And by the way, if Eric Adams wants some help fixing this problem, he can pick up the phone and call someone else named Charles Schumer. He's a New York resident. I believe he lives in Manhattan. If the mayor doesn't have his number, we can give him Chuck Schumer's cell phone. Because Chuck Schumer is responsible, in the words of the New York mayor, for destroying New York City. Look, some of y'all may have seen when Alejandro Mayorkas testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I asked him, I said, Mr. Secretary, how many migrants died last year crossing illegally? He said, I don't know, I have no idea. I said, of course you don't. The official numbers are 853, but you don't care about those dead bodies that appear in Texas every single day. I asked him, how many children were brutalized by human traffickers? He said, I don't know. How many women were sexually assaulted? I don't know. How many people died of drug overdoses? As John Cornyn told you, it's more than 100,000. And you want to talk about something stunning? I put up a photograph.
Oh wow, that was a wild ending. So, anyways, what he was talking about there is all facts. He's definitely a good speaker. I mean, he's hitting the nail on the head there. I think a lot of Americans have feeling that that frustration with the influx of immigrants in their communities. And if you go into these metropolitan areas, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, I don't know if San Francisco is one of them, but there's been a mass migration of like people just being bussed into these areas. I mean, Chicago is not too far from where I am. It's about a 2.5 drive. So in Chicago, there's been evidence of just people being misplaced or not misplaced, but bust into those cities to where they're placed in hotels and they're sleeping in police stations. So the idea there is the police station during the daytime, but at night the people that are bused to those destinations use it as a sleeping pad. So it's a real problem. I mean, Chicago and New York natives are feeling it the most. You know, they're feeling like the tax dollars are being misappropriated, which I understand, right? I saw this one documentary, like this one kid was interviewing like two Venezuelan women, and they were so happy that all the toiletries and all their food and all their lodging was handled on their behalf. And then the kid was like, "Hey, so where do you think all this money comes from?" And then she was like, "I don't know. I don't care. I have all my needs met." So then the kid was like, "Well, it comes from my tax dollars. So me working, the person you see picking up trash there is actually paying for your lodging and for your hygiene products that you need." And those two women were very astonished and astounded that they were actually being a burden on the taxpayer system. So these are real facts, and people in those cities are feeling it. And there's been quite a bit of animosity between the two groups, right? The people that are being cared for and the people that are working for those things, which they feel like is just being handed over to the people that are bused into these cities. So it's definitely a tough situation, you know. So it's and a delicate one, right? I mean, you've seen like random explosion of violence between the two groups, and it hasn't been pleasant. So, anyways, I want to see what's at the end of this. So, I know these are very sensitive topics and subjects, right? So, and I know people feel very very strongly about these topics. So, if you have that strong feeling and you feel like you need to talk about this, you're more than welcome to drop a comment. But let's adhere to the community's rules and regulations, right? Let's be respectful to one another, and let's respect each other's beliefs and having beliefs and belief systems, right? So leave a comment if you feel the need to, but be respectful and be kind, right? So, anyways, let's see what's at the end of this video. I'm very curious. So I'm gonna fast forward it a little bit just to see if there's anything there. Ah, there is something. So the good senator is back. I think he talks about something else there. So let's see what he has to say.
Do you live in Michigan?
Uh
How
oh.
about own your own home but still rent your electricity? If you pay more than $70 a month in electricity, then you might
Excuse
With
the
pictures of
advertisements
colored
there. Those are
wristbands. I
some
said,
of the
Mr.
things you
Secretary, what are
cannot
these
portray on
wristbands?
YouTube.
And he said, I have no idea what they are. Now, look, any good lawyer will tell you you don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. That was one answer that left me flabbergasted. Because just about every single illegal immigrant who crosses the border wears one of those wristbands. They're color-coded for how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. And if you stand on the banks of the Rio Grande River, you see hundreds or thousands of these wristbands. They're just like this. These are the wristbands picked up from the banks of the Rio Grande River. And the little boys, the teenagers who come in who owe thousands of dollars to the cartels, they're sent to every city in America, and they're working for the cartels to pay off those thousands of dollars. They're committing crimes in Washington, D.C., and New York, in every city in America. And if they don't pay off the cartels, their families will be murdered. And as bad as the boys have it, the girls have it even worse. There are literally thousands upon thousands of girls trapped in sex slavery to pay off their debts to the cartels. When I look at these are modern day leg irons. This is human slavery. And it is caused by the Democrats not giving a damn about the people being abused. And so I want to make a plea to the press. The reason the Democrats can do this, can look the other way, is because they're confident that the corporate media will not report on it, that they'll never have to answer questions about it. They'll never be confronted with the dead bodies, with the people being brutalized by these policies. So I want to make a plea to you. If you're not writing on it, if you're not running stories on it, if you're not telling what's happening, you are complicit in modern day slavery. This is indefensible. It's evil. Senator Brett.
So I understand that Senator Ted Cruz here, he's a Republican, and obviously his political philosophy is very different from the Democratic political philosophy there. And I do agree, I do understand that the two political systems vehemently disagrees on a lot of issues there, right? But to just say that this is a problem as a result of democratic um, rules and regulations, I think that may be a bit false there. Because I mean, I understand that he's a Republican, and anything democratic driven or democratic agendas, they'll be demoralized or maybe not carried forward as being of sound mind nor thinking. So I don't think, or I do not agree with him the fact that the problems with the southern border is due to democratic. Let me rephrase that. It's solely based on democratic rules and regulations. That I do not agree, because I mean, it takes two party systems to like agree and come up with a solution to where those at least attempts to implement a rule and regulation are therefore enforced into rules and common law, right? So for him to like solely blame the Democratic Party, I think it's a bit insincere. So I think this is a problem that has been around for a long time, and it seems to have intensified in a lot of years, right? And the problem there, I think, and don't quote me on this, this is me just supposing, right? I think this has intensified due to like the drug problem, due to the cartels and the havoc that they're causing into the individual countries, right? Because the cartel spreads from, I mean, I think there are like factions of the cartel in the US down to the southern tip of the Southern American continent. So I think it's a worldwide pandemic, and we've started to notice this same pattern in like some African coastal countries, right? Like if you go to West Africa, there's a route there for like cocaine trafficking from like maybe Senegal or one of those ocean countries through the desert to like Morocco into Spain and into the Europe there, right? Into the European countries there. So it is a tough one, you know. This problem is just not isolated to the US. I think this is a worldwide pandemic. And I mean, for sure, this problem has hit the most in the US because I mean, that's where the demand and the market and the money is. So I think that is felt very heavily here. But anyways, let's see what the senator has to say.
Question.
Yeah, look, we're getting ready to go through an unfortunate bit of political theater. And the reason for that is that the Democrats have made the decision to be hard partisans rather than to work together in a bipartisan manner. Last year, Congress passed 5 separate COVID relief bills. Every one of them was bipartisan. So it's not just empty words. Republicans here have demonstrated that we are ready and willing to roll up our sleeves and work together in a bipartisan manner to address COVID, to defeat this pandemic, and to get people back to work. Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi could have done the same. But they made a decision instead. This is not a COVID bill. 9% of this bill focuses on COVID health spending. 91% is a partisan wish list paying off the Democratic special interests that got them elected. And it's cynical. It's got Chuck Schumer's bridge to Canada. The last I checked, a bridge to Canada is not going to defeat COVID. The first version of the bill had Nancy Pelosi's tunnel of love to be built in Silicon Valley because apparently bringing pork home to her constituents will help us defeat COVID.
So I think this interview, or rather this stream, or this video is just a conjugation of the many videos of Senator Ted Cruz. So I do like the way the guy speaks, and I think this is back in 2020 when he was addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, sickness, and all that jazz. And yeah, that was a tough time for everybody, and I don't necessarily want to go back there because I mean, obviously there was a lot of human loss. There was a lot of sad moments. There was the shenanigans with George Floyd. So that was definitely a tough time, you know. But I do want to thank the person that made this video. It's like I said, it's a concatenation of like different interviews or maybe different speeches, and no no shame there, or no the senator can definitely put his point across. He's a marvelous speaker, and obviously he's made a long life career of speaking and being in public spaces. But the guy has great ideas. I think he can go far. He's gone far. I mean, he did run for presidential candidacy back in 2016, but obviously it did not work out in his favor. We had Trump, President Trump. He outbeat all of them. But anyways, this is has been a marathon of Senator Ted Cruz just going ham on everybody. I really did enjoy this, and if you enjoyed this, please leave a like, share, and subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend. I think I'll end it here, and thanks for watching. I will see you later, and bye.